Peace. I just wanted to take a moment to build briefly about the pastor that kicked the transgender person out of his church and just share some of my perspectives on that. The first thing I thought about is in my personal experience and in what I've observed, I haven't seen instances where a person being publicly shamed is also inspired and encouraged to change. I mean, even as an early childhood educator working with preschoolers, my 4 and 5 year olds don't like being put on blast. And when you do something like that, they even understand that there was a better way that you could have addressed that situation by pulling them aside or talking to them in private about whatever it is that they were doing instead of embarrassing them in front of their other 4 and 5 year old friends. So children don't like being embarrassed like that. And adults don't like being embarrassed like that as well. So I think that the pastor using his platform to grandstand like that was inappropriate. I think that it was not responsible of him. I think that it was immature, and I also think that it showed that he had a low EQ, or he needs to develop in the area of emotional intelligence when it comes to empathy and compassion. I actually did a video about EQ or emotional intelligence. Just look through my videos and you'll see something that's labeled EQ or emotional intelligence, and I talk a little bit more in depth about what that actually is. I say that it wasn't responsible of him because even if he addressed this person in private beforehand, I don't know. For him to utilize his platform to grandstand like that after the fact wasn't appropriate. Um, does that institution have a formal dress code when it comes to what's expected of their members? I don't know. But I also know that that wasn't a appropriate forum to express informally what those actual standards or dress codes are. That's something that could be addressed and talked about by pulling a person aside and dealing with them in privacy. Why do I say that it wasn't responsible? Because when you are the head of a house of worship, whether it is Islam or Christianity or whatever religion that it actually is, that is considered a sacred place. When I grew up, I always heard the phrase that the doors of the church are always open, which means that you're welcome here. So this being a place that is sacred, a place that you are welcomed at, is essentially telling you that this is a safe space. You're protected here. And by the pastor telling this person that they're not welcome here and they can go somewhere else, what you were essentially communicating to them is that they're not protected here. And this is not a safe space. And that they cannot expect you to look out for their interests just as a human being because you disagree with them. Now, I think that it's possible to disagree with people, but in the same regard, this person knows that you're fair, that you're equitable, that you're just, and you will not allow people to mistreat them. I didn't get that from how this pastor was communicating, so he wasn't weighing his words properly, and I think that's something that we all need to keep in mind, that sometimes when we don't weigh our words properly, our words can be used as a dog whistle to deputize or put the battery in the back of other people on the fringes that have some very radical or extreme ideas about some of the things that we may mutually or philosophically agree with. So, for example, in the video, you heard people in the congregation agreeing with the pastor and this, that, and the third. You don't know for sure what they will be willing to do and say to this person based upon them philosophically agreeing with you. You don't know if you have people in that congregation that had some very radical or extreme ideas about what they need to do to this person. And that's something that we see just generally when it comes to the political landscape in America, what we see in the media. People don't weigh their words properly, and then their words serve as a dog whistle to deputize people who have very radical or extreme ideas about things that they may philosophically agree with you on. And I think that we need to be more responsible when it comes to how we weigh our words, where we articulate that there's certain things that we may disagree with, but those words cannot be used as a dog whistle to deputize people to do things to undermine a person's humanity, to hurt them, or to take advantage of them. People should know that even in disagreement, even if we may not be on the same page when it comes to certain issues, that they're still going to be treated fairly by us. They're still going to be given a sense of equality by us. And we won't allow people to mistreat them or to do things to them based upon that disagreement. I think it's possible for us to not judge people, but people to understand that we are just and that we are true. One of the other things that I think that is important to keep in mind is a lot of times people suffer in silence. And even though this person that was transgender was courageous enough to express themselves externally like that publicly, there may have been more people in that congregation that feels the exact same way that they do, but never have expressed themselves publicly in the same way that this person did. So in knowing that, it's important for us who are in leadership positions to serve people to consider that people suffer in silence, and they may not share how they think or how they feel about certain things that they're going through, but they may be present just to receive a word that they can use to help make sense out of and figure things out for themselves privately. They may not be public like that. So we have to weigh our words properly when it comes to that as well, because you have to consider people that may not be using their voice and share things that speaks directly to their heart without them asking you any questions to strive to resolve some of the issues that they may be privately dealing with. Can you imagine how many people that you are close to, that may be in your family, that may be in your community, friends that you've known for years that may have been struggling with certain things privately that they never share with you? But maybe because you gave them some words of advice, or you spoke some words into them and shared something with them that allowed them to privately make sense out of things that they were striving to figure out on their own privately. They may have been dealing with issues when it came to race or gender or family dynamics, other different things that's going on. You would never even know that, because these are things that people oftentimes take to the grave. And if it wasn't for a person that was considerate enough to think about people and what they may have been potentially going through privately, they may have not been able to figure that out on their own. It's people that are around you every day based upon those type of circumstances. So it's important for us to keep that in mind, that everybody may not be public like that about the things that they're dealing with. And we have to be cognizant or conscious of the fact that people are oftentimes around us to receive a word. And that word has to be inspirational, encouraging, as well as something to help them solve some of the problems that they're privately dealing with. So this was inspiring, it was empowering, it was encouraging. It just gave those of you some of my perspective on what I actually seen in that video, and to let you know that it's important to make sure we weigh our words the right way. And whenever we're in a leadership position, whether we are the head of our household, whether we are the chairman of the block club in our community, whether we're a principal, a manager, we're leading a house of worship, in any capacity that we find ourselves in as a leader, a servant to the people, we have to develop the emotional intelligence and have empathy and compassion enough to realize that everybody may not share with you publicly what they're dealing with privately. And we have to speak words into people to give them the ability to solve some of those things that they may never share with people for their entire life. Peace.